What is up, party people? It's your boy David here, and I'm just going to drop off a little nugget about the cycle that I have identified that often prohibits people from actually creating and solidifying the changes that they want to create in their life. I've observed this cycle from my own experience, but I've also seen it pop up in other people. What I've come to find is that when understanding what this cycle is and how it perpetuates keeping yourself in the same place, you can then understand how to end the cycle so that you can effectively implement the changes that you need to implement in order to get closer to having a life experience that you actually want. So let me go ahead and pull up my iPad because I like pictures and drawings and things like that because I think it makes it a little bit easier to understand things when you can see them. So let's take a look. So this is a picture that I drew many years ago, actually. I don't know exactly how many. And I was going through my iPad and I found this and I thought it was very apropos for me to just create a spur of the moment piece of content based on this. This is something I identified quite a while ago, and I've been able to use this to identify some of the moments when the changes that I'm looking to create in my life become rather difficult. And it's usually something that happens within the cycle. So let's start right at the top. Let me get a fun little color to use right here. Boop. So this is kind of where we start. This is the starting place. Let me get a bigger paintbrush. What about like that? So typically, when we get to a point in life where we want to create some sort of change to have a closer, have life be a closer representation of what we actually want it to be, it usually comes from a place of lack of fulfillment or feeling unfulfilled, right? We're going through life and we get to a point where it's like, there's got to be more than this, right? We want something, we need something to change in our lives so that we can get a greater sense of fulfillment. Now, some people are fine going through life without any sense of meaning, purpose, or fulfillment, and that's absolutely fine. This cycle shows up for the people that actually seek a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, right? So typically, the person will get to a point where they feel unfulfilled. They feel like they lack purpose in their life or their life lacks meaning. And so they need to change something, right? Something has to change so that they can actually have a life that closely resembles the life that they truly want. So then they decide to make a change, right? They look at their relationships, they look at their health habits, they look at their, exercise, their diet, their nutrition. They look at the hobbies that they engage with, and just the career choices that they make, the job that they have, what their financial situation is, whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing may be, they decide to create some sort of change with whatever that is because they believe that by making XYZ change, it is going to bring them closer to having a fulfilled life experience, or rather removing their sense of being unfulfilled, right? Let me just erase this. Yeah. So once they decide to create the change, right, we then, and they decide, like, let's say I'm going to go back to the gym, right? I decide I'm going to work on my health. I'm going to go back to the gym and I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to gain weight, or I'm going to fix my posture, whatever it is, right? And then they start actually creating the change, right? They take the first step. They go to the gym. They hire a nutritionist, whatever it may be. If they're working on their finances, they find somebody that is a whiz with money, or they take their own initiative to start budgeting or doing income forecasting, whatever it may be, right? They take the first step, and then the second step, and then the third step, right? And they begin creating the change that they think is going to remove them from that place of being unfulfilled, right? So once they are creating the desired change that's going to take them out of that place where they feel unfulfilled, they start to leave the known and enter the unknown, right? What they know is the space of being unfulfilled and feeling unfulfilled. That's what happens, right? What you know, even if it's not something that you desire, right? If someone is in a place in life where they feel unfulfilled, that space is still what is known to them, and what is known is comfortable. So they start to leave the known, they start to leave the comfort, and then once they leave the known and the comfort, they enter the unknown, which also comes with discomfort, right? Which is when we encounter resistance and discomfort. The resistance and discomfort is not just feeling out of place, but also there's it's like a tension, right? That there's something that's not quite right. There's some sort of like it's just tension, right? There's in a resistance towards whatever the change may be, right? You start getting to the gym and you're going, and then perhaps you're a ways into it, and then you're not seeing the results that you thought you were going to see in the way that you thought you were going to see them. And then you might start feeling some resistance towards the change that you were implementing, right? I'm doing all of this work and I'm not seeing any of the results that I'm looking for. Why should I keep doing it, right? And there's the resistance or the discomfort where it's doing eating really really healthy and not consuming so much junk food and stuff like that. But eventually, that's going to bring its own sense of discomfort in terms of the way that you feel about the food that you're eating, or feeling like you're missing out on some of the super tasty junk food, right? And so this is where one of two things happen. Let's just ignore this for now. Let's ignore that. We're going to come back to it, okay? So what can end up happening, and what usually happens, is the entrance of some sort of toxic coping mechanism that is meant to ease the discomfort that is a result of leaving the known space that they've been in. Right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a toxic coping mechanism, but there's some sort of coping mechanism all the same that is actually a detriment to the change, or it's counterproductive to the change that they are working towards implementing in their life, right? So if it's a health and nutrition thing, while they are working on their diet and they're working on exercise, there could be an instance where they go on some sort of food binge, right, and eat a whole bunch of junk food, and then kind of spiral, right, as a result of engaging in this coping mechanism that is meant to release or relieve the resistance and discomfort that is ultimately coming from leaving the space that they are used to existing in, right? Which ultimately they revert back to the space of comfort. They abandon the change and they end up right back where they started, feeling unfulfilled, wanting the change, whatever that may be, right? And that is the cycle that goes over and over and over again. You want some sort of change, or rather you feel unfulfilled, and so you want change because you feel like making a particular change of some sort is going to relieve or get rid of that feeling, or rather the feeling of not being fulfilled. You decide to make some sort of change. You start creating the change. When you start creating the change, you leave what you know and you enter what you unknow. Along with that comes the resistance and discomfort. In order to relieve the resistance and discomfort, you engage in some sort of comforting coping mechanism that is detrimental to your progress. And then by engaging with that coping mechanism that's detrimental to your progress, you revert to what you used to know, you abandon the change, and you start right back where you began. Right? Over and over and over and over again. So now let's get to this area right here. We embrace the discomfort until it becomes the new normal, right? That is the trick. That's the trick to all of this, because if you actually embrace the discomfort, then you are eliminating that part of the cycle, right? Where you cycle back into where you used to be or where you started, right? And the key part is really not just embracing the discomfort, but just avoiding that place where you ease the discomfort by reverting to a coping mechanism, right? That's the key part of all of this, because the moment that you revert to a coping mechanism that your existence finds to be synonymous with the space that you existed in, that has that feeling of unfulfillment, right? You're going to cycle back into that. So ultimately, what you're doing when you're creating these changes, you're creating a new space for yourself to exist in, right? This is the old space, the unfulfilled and wanting change is the old space. Once you leave this space, then you start to live in the new one, right? And all of a sudden, the discomfort that came from the change, eventually it fades, it becomes the new normal, and that is the new space that you live in. And then the rest of this gets abandoned. Let me find a new color here. Let's do that. All of this stuff gets abandoned entirely. I wanted red. Why did that happen? That's not what I wanted. Let's do that. All of this stuff gets abandoned. All of that gets abandoned. Once you encounter the resistance and the discomfort, that means that you've made significant progress such that the change could be solidified. So long as you don't revert to your old ways, the change will solidify, and eventually it will become the new normal, and you will exist in a new space. So this is the cycle, and this is how you can navigate the cycle. And really, the trick to all of this is to just know what your coping mechanisms are, especially when you are in places of discomfort or stress, right? If you know that whenever you get stressed out, you engage in some sort of activity that is detrimental to you, whether it be binge drinking, or some people have gambling vices. For some people, there's other sorts of substances that they imbibe. Or if it's neglecting certain responsibilities for the sake of doing something else, like whatever the thing is, right? Whether it's escapism, like, it doesn't matter. Everybody has their coping mechanism that is going to be detrimental to their own success. People will have several coping mechanisms that are detrimental to their own success. And so long as you're able to recognize what those coping mechanisms are that could be detrimental to your success in creating the change in your life that will bring you closer to having the things that you want to have and the life experience that you want to have. If you can avoid those coping mechanisms that are detrimental, then you will be able to make any change happen at a much more rapid pace than it otherwise would have if you were to repeatedly engage with whatever the detrimental coping mechanism may be. Okay? It's really not that complicated. It's simple, but it's not easy. And the thing that I go back to repeatedly with all of this stuff is that really the thing is, people are really good at lying to themselves. We're really good at saying that certain things that are not, or certain things that are problematic, we're good at lying to ourselves and telling ourselves that they're not problematic. We're really good at making excuses for things. We're really good at deceiving ourselves from the truth of our own reality. And that is where the coping mechanisms that can be detrimental actually hide, right? They hide under our nose and in front of our face, because for whatever reason, we have a hard time acknowledging that our coping mechanisms are in fact detrimental to our own progress in life, because we're really good at lying to ourselves. So if you have been able to identify what your detrimental coping mechanisms are, congratulations, good for you. If you have no idea what they are, then maybe it would be worth considering finding someone that might be able to shine a light on some of that for you. And if you think that it might be a detrimental coping mechanism, but you're not sure, Well, it's probably a detrimental coping mechanism, and you should probably reconsider if you want to keep that around in your life in order to actually get closer to having what you want. If you're able to remove or reduce the detrimental coping mechanisms, then you will be able to solidify any change at a much more rapid pace and get closer to having the life experience that you truly want sooner rather than later. So that's all I really got for this. If you have any questions about this, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'm super easy to find. You can DM me just about anywhere. And this is, you can drop something in the comments. I don't know where this video is going yet. But yeah, any questions, reach out to me. I'm always down to hop on a call with anybody that thinks that I might be able to help them and see what I could do to actually shine a light on what's going on in their life and maybe point them in the right direction of things that they could do or things that you could do to get closer to having a life experience that you truly want. All right, I'll catch you later.